Hey guys, I'm Kelly, the nurse who questions. Okay, so I want you to imagine something.
Well, the world is one step closer to creating designer babies with a world-first experiment altering the genes of embryos. Scientists at Columbia University have used a method called base editing, which chemically alters one letter in the DNA sequence.
You're doing IVF, in vitro fertilization. You have 5 different embryos. And instead of your doctor telling you which embryo looks the healthiest, you get a genetic report. Embryo number 1 is predicted to have brown eyes. Embryo number 2, blue eyes. One is predicted to be taller, and one has a lower genetic risk for heart disease. And another has a lower genetic risk for depression. And there are even companies analyzing genetic markers associated with intelligence.
Some of the same guys pouring billions into AI are quietly funding startups to genetically screen and eventually edit embryos for intelligence. They're racing against a threat known as the singularity, the moment when super intelligent machines surpass the feeble cognitive abilities of humans and begin to act in ways contrary to the interests of humanity. But instead of simply pumping the brakes on AI, they've come up with a new solution to save humanity: genetically engineered genius babies.
25-year-old Kian Sadeki runs a tech startup called Nucleus Genomics. His company uses AI algorithms to analyze the DNA of his customers' future children. These are nitrogen tanks, I think.
Yes.
How many embryos do you reckon there are in here? Like millions?
If all the samples here were embryos, yes, there would be millions, yes.
Millions of potential new humans?
Yeah.
And then someone says, which baby would you like? And I know that sounds like science fiction, but that's actually happening right now. At least parts of it. There's a few companies. One in particular is Nucleus Genomics. They're analyzing IVF embryos for thousands of diseases and traits, including eye color, hair color, height, and other characteristics. But here's the important distinction. They're not taking an embryo with brown-eye genes and manipulating it so a baby would have blue eyes. They're not doing that yet. They're analyzing embryos that already exist and then giving parents information that can influence which embryos they're going to pick. That's called embryo selection. But there's also another technology developing alongside of this called gene editing. That's CRISPR. CRISPR.
CRISPR is a device, a technology that we have today that can splice DNA. You can take a gene out, you can put a gene in. You can alter DNA with CRISPR.
And CRISPR doesn't just read the genetic instruction manual. It can actually change the instructions. Scientists have already edited human embryos. So I feel like we essentially have 2 roads that are currently developing now. One lets us choose between genetic possibilities, and the other can let us change those possibilities. And for me, that's where the conversation can kind of get dark. Because I think almost everybody agrees that using this technology so a kid doesn't get some genetic disease completely makes sense. If you could prevent your child from developing some fatal disease, of course you'd use this technology. But then my question is, where does prevention and optimization begin? Like, what if you could choose an embryo with a lower risk of Alzheimer's? Okay. What about depression, ADHD, autism, bipolar? What about height, weight, athletic ability, intelligence? Like, at what point did we stop choosing the healthiest embryo and start choosing the human being we preferred? And then there's this other piece that nobody likes to talk about, which is the money factor. So this technology is increasingly going to become more and more sophisticated, but it's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And I don't think insurance companies are going to cover it initially. Now, wealthy parents don't just give their kids better schools, tutors, neighborhoods. We're going to give them more advantages before they're even born. And that's going to start in the fertility clinic. And that's where this word gets uncomfortable. And I'm going to go there. It's called eugenics.
It's a controversial proposal and it's had ethicists worried for years. On one hand, it may allow mutations that could cause disease to be removed from embryos, reducing the risk of future illnesses. But on the other, it opens the door to eugenics by offering potential parents the ability to select traits such as hair or eye colour, even intelligence and athletic ability.
Because eugenics in the future probably isn't going to look like the government is forcing you to have certain babies. It could look much more innocent, like loving parents saying, I just want to have a healthy baby. I want them to have the best opportunities. Then if I could choose the embryo with better odds, why wouldn't I? And I feel like that's how the line kind of gets moved. Not because somebody wakes up one morning and they decide, hey, I'm going to create a superior human race. I mean, hopefully not. I'm trying to be optimistic. But because millions of parents independently make understandable choices, one embryo at a time. And here's the question that I can't stop thinking about. If this technology eventually becomes normal, and every other parent is selecting an embryo based on health, intelligence, traits, would choosing not to do it start to make you look like you're putting your kid at risk for a disadvantage? Are we going to have to be forced to do this in the future? Because maybe that's the biggest question. Can we create designer babies? We're already beginning to choose between characteristics of potential children, and scientists already know how to alter DNA. So the bigger question is, once humanity gains more control over what the next generation looks like, who decides when we've gone too far? Those are my questions, and I think they're valid ones.
a religion of technology that the elites are obsessed with, right? The Silicon Valley religion that, I think it was Ray Kurzweil when they asked him, do you believe in God? Not yet. In other words, we're going to create God, artificial intelligence. This is a religion of the technology.
And you have Noah Yuval Harari writing that Homo Deus. That's our next incarnation. It's like when man becomes like God or something. Yeah.
In 100 to, what does he say, 100 to 120 years from now, there will be no more human beings left on planet Earth. And what he means is that the human species is going to evolve. This is directed evolution, right? So we're going to direct the evolutionary ascent of our species using technology. This is the first time we've ever been able to do this. We are now building the tools that are going to give us the capability to modify the human biology wholesale and integrate cybernetics, artificial intelligence, and then also something most people don't realize is coming is the genetic revolution. Artificial wombs, designer babies, all coming.
And this doesn't end here. No, some of these AI executives want the babies to have neural implants from birth.
I want to wait to have kids until we figure out how Neuralink or other, it's called brain-computer interfaces, so other ways for brains to interlink with a computer. In your first 7 years of life, your brain is more neuroplastic than at any other point in your life. I think when we get Neuralink and we get these other technologies, kids who are born with them are going to learn how to use them in crazy ways. It'll be actually a part of their brain in a way that it'll never be true for an adult who gets a Neuralink or whatever hooked into their brain.